People can point to a million factors that ultimately doomed Sears, and in the aggregate they did. But fundamentally, what the company neglected to do was to understand the importance of stores and the importance of merchandise and the importance of e-commerce, and have all three of them feed one another.
It's incredible in retrospect to look back and think of what e-commerce became, and then look at what Sears had, because it had everything. And they were simply a non-entity in e-commerce once it actually became established.
Shopkeepers say the Christmas bonanza started earlier than ever this year, with record sales in November and the spending spree still going strong.
The dominance of Sears over retail in many aspects of American lives was such that at its peak it represented 1% of the US GDP all on its own. Its market cap had reached $96 billion in 1965 dollars. So it was in the mid-60s. But also it was the place where a lot of Americans built up their credit history so that they could buy homes and they could buy big ticket items. The catalog was a fixture of American life. Sears sold prefab homes to people. It was a very inescapable part of American life for decades.
There's more for your life. Cheryl Teagues is calling me.
It dominated retailing, the stock was booming, everything just looked like it was going great. The CEOs didn't have a whole lot of incentive to change things. Why rock the boat, when you're performing so fantastically?
We're at a Sears store to find out why Sears is where America shops.
I do a lot of shopping for out-of-town family. You could order from the catalog and have them ship it to wherever you want, anywhere in the United States.
So the company started life in 1886 as a catalog and thrived. And of course, like a lot of retailers, including Amazon today, discovered it needed stores, which it opened the first of its kind in 1925. And then in the 60s, it really expanded with malls across the country. The catalog remained a crucial part of the business and actually very much part of American culture, and peaked in revenue at $4.1 billion in the late 80s. But by that point, it had gotten very expensive to produce. It was 1,500 pages and you were selling it to millions of people. And there were so many different kinds of items and a lot of low margin and unprofitable items that it really became a big financial albatross for the company. And so in 1993, they said, bye-bye catalog.
Because of the catalog, it had addresses, purchase history, billing information about millions, tens of millions of customers. It had the infrastructure for the catalog business, meaning warehouses and distribution centers all over the country. It had tremendous expertise in mailing stuff, sending products out to people through the mail. It apparently just did not occur to them that all the data they had from that catalog operation and that vast distribution network that they had built up for 100 years was the perfect setup for getting into e-commerce. Instead, they shut it all down, sold it off, and it just disappeared.
Pretty fancy computer there.
Want to give it a test drive?
Me?
Come on, Jack. I'll show you something absolutely super.
Sears was surprisingly advanced in the world of using the internet. First of all, they had a good website. You could go and look at all kinds of information, look at prices, look at merchandise and stuff like that. They even realized that it would be great for you to be able to order something and then go pick it up at the store. Well, there are retailers that are just introducing that today. They were offering it close to 20 years ago.
But e-commerce doesn't work if your stores are shabby and if your merchandise isn't great. Why go to a website and buy something if you don't like what you see? And so ultimately, the tech muscle was pretty good at Sears in the last decade, but the merchandise and the relationship with stores was not there. That was one of the biggest miscalculations in the former CEO, Eddie Lampert's strategy for the company. He saw stores and e-commerce as a zero-sum game, and as we've seen, you need stores to support e-commerce because you need stores as a place to go pick up online orders, to ship orders, and also to maintain brand visibility.
Every store is like a giant billboard for your company. And when you close the stores down, that visibility just evaporates. And you're no longer a presence in the consumer's mind. And that really ended up hurting them.
Amazon is extending its reach with a big move into the major appliance market. The online retail giant will begin selling Kenmore brand appliances from Sears.
Up until very recently, Sears still had 29% of the U.S. appliance market. And what that allowed it to do is, over the years, accumulate a lot of information about its customers, what they bought. It had an enormous database of information on installations and what brands. They were also doing that for appliances that they didn't sell, so that was a potential lucrative form of revenue that they could have sold to other appliance makers. And that should have been something that it could leverage into the home services market. So in theory, the whole smart home business should have been theirs, but because so much of the company was in decline and there was chaos and infighting, the company just never leveraged that advantage. And so smart home services was a business that eventually went to Amazon, and it eventually went to Best Buy as well, a company that only a few years ago was thought to also be in a downward permanent spiral.
If you haven't been to Sears lately, you haven't been to Sears.
The whole lesson that we should draw out of this, the reason the Sears story should scare us, is that these things can happen so easily without them being visible. And that's certainly what happened with Sears.
In the early 1990s, Sears had everything it would need in its toolkit to become the dominant e-commerce player. It had distribution networks, it had information on millions and millions of shoppers, and it had the overall infrastructure. So really, e-commerce dominance was Sears to lose, and in fact, that's exactly what it did. And later, Amazon was the one that picked up the prize.